Hello everybody, welcome to Master DevOps YouTube channel. My name is Naman and in today's video we are going to learn about AWS IAM. IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. So without any further ado, let's dive in and understand the contents of today's video. So these are the contents. At first we'll understand what is IAM, then why we need IAM, as IAM is a very important aspect of AWS security as it implements which user should be accessing what resource and what should be the permissions or policy assigned to it. Next, we'll understand about users, groups, and roles in IAM. After that, we'll understand what are policies and permissions and how do we implement it. And at last, we'll be having a hands-on and complete practical over all the IAM that is given to us by AWS. So at first, let us understand what is IAM. IAM basically stands for Identity Access and Management. As the name suggests, it is used to make sure which identity or user or group or role, whatever, should be accessing what kind of resource and it overall manages it. Right. So its name is Identity Access and Management as it completely manages what resource should be accessed by what user. Next, it is a global service provided to us by AWS, which means that it is not dependent upon any region given to us like Hyderabad, Mumbai, or North Virginia or whatever. It is completely global as it acts over the AWS account. Next, it is a part of AWS security and compliance. As I told you, it makes sure what user should be accessing, what type of resources, what policies are to be implemented, what permissions are to be given. It manages everything. Also, it makes whenever you sign up on AWS, it is by default activated because the root account that you use is by default the first user of IAM, and it is completely not recommended to use the root account for day-to-day tasks. You need to create a separate user for the for your day-to-day tasks so that your root account keeps it, so that your root account is kept safe. Next, it correctly implements the least privilege principle. But at first, we should understand what the principle is about. So let us say we have a user who wants to just view the EC2 instances running in an account. So what permissions will that user be getting? The complete access to EC2 instances or just the read only? So since AWS is able to provide you permissions at granular level, you can provide the user access to only the thing that he wants to. So let us say if he wants to just see the EC2 instances running in an account, so he will not be able to start or terminate or stop the instances if the permissions are not assigned to him for that. So next, let us understand why do we need IAM. IAM first of all enhances the security of all the AWS resources because it makes sure that the user who is accessing the resource is correctly implemented with least privilege principle. If the user does not require any kind of resource or any kind of permission, he can be removed off and the resources are kept safe. It provides control over the granular permissions. As we dive deep and go to the practical part, I'll show you how you can easily go deep dive and assign the permissions as per your requirement. Next, it provides a centralized environment for all the users with the permissions. So once we go to the IAM dashboard, you will be seeing all the permissions, all the resources, all the users actually who are active, when they did last login, which groups do they belong to, whatever the information are, you can easily view them on the centralized dashboard. And if required, you can alter them as per the requirements. Next, it can be used in audit and compliance. How? I'll show that to you and I'll explain you with the help of AWS artifacts. So when you go to the IAM, you will have an option to see which user is accessing what type of resources or basically what type of permissions. So let us say I have assigned EC2 instance complete permissions to a user, and he just only goes to the dashboard, sees what are instances running and does nothing. And this has been continuing for 2 months, 3 months. So what I'll be doing, I'll reduce the permissions to just read only, because he is not doing anything with the EC2 instances like starting the instance, terminating the instance or whatever. So we can accordingly reduce the permissions with the help of IAM artifacts that are given to us. I'll show you how we can do that. Next, we can work on users and groups, but we can also use roles to assign the permissions. So basically, roles are something which indirectly, I would say, work with the resources on your behalf to complete the task. It is a bit complicated to understand as of now, but when we go ahead and understand users groups and then the roles, it will be more easier. Next, it provides accountability. So you keep a track of all the things that are being done in your AWS accounts or to the resources. So let us say if a user did something wrong with your AWS resource, then you still have the logs, or I would say you can still find the accountability to the user who did that. Next, it helps users to enable two-factor authentication and other security policies, which are very important. So let us say if your account gets compromised and you have two-factor authentication enabled, it will be very difficult for the user to guess the two-factor authentication and then bypass your account. So it is always recommended to enable two-factor authentication. So now it is a time to understand what are users in IAM. Users basically are the individual identity, or maybe people, or maybe anyone who just wants to access the AWS resources. IAM users can be very effectively or very helpful in managing the resources, as first they are identified with some kind of other security keys or maybe usernames or account ID, whatever you have assigned to them. Next, you have option to enable security credentials. Let us say if you have a user who just wants to access the AWS resources programmatically, you can disable the dashboard and that user can only use security credentials to access the AWS resource through an API, and you can keep a track of it as well. Next, if you don't want the user to have the security credentials, you can give him the access to the console, but limiting the permissions if required and if not. Next, you can give the programmatic access as I told you. Next, you can define the permissions as granular as possible. You can assign to a group and then add the user in the group, or you can directly assign the permissions to the policy, which are also known as inline policies. We'll see all that when we go to the practical. So let us just understand the theory as of now. Next, you can implement the password policies. So let us say that I want to create a user, but I don't want to use any kind of password policy that AWS gives me by default. For example, you need to keep a password of 8 characters. It should be alphanumeric, both uppercase and lowercase letters should be used. So you can completely optimize it as per your requirements. Next, activity login. You can track all the activities that is being done by the user and then accordingly manage it so that your resources are kept safe in the infrastructure. Because if anybody has access to a resource, then he can completely damage the infrastructure. I have seen people doing that. Now, last point is the access control. You can control what access to be given to the users in the IAM. That is again the permissions and the policies, but you can control it easily either through the inline policies or by adding the user in the group of a particular permission that you want to add to. So now it is the time to understand what are groups in IAM. Groups are basically a set to organize an IAM user. So let us say if we have 10 users who want to have the same type of permissions, let us say there is a developer group who just wants to see these instances running, just that. So what you can do is you can create a group named developers, assign the policy to the group, let us say easy to instance read only, and when add all the 10 users to that particular group. So if anybody out of those 10 people wants to access the EC2 instance, they will just be able to view them. So it is a easy way to organize and manage the IAM users. But here are some key points that you should take care of. First is that they are logical containers. So containers as in whatever you keep in the, let us say in the kitchens that we have pulses, we have rice, we have other things. So what we do, we have a separate container for everything. So in the same way, what are groups doing here? Groups are separate containers for each type of policies or permissions, or same type of people as well as same type of groups in the organizations, or same type of departments. There are a lot of things you can keep track of here. Next, it is a very simplified permission management. As I told you, you have a group. So let us say in the previous example, I told you if you have 10 people who wants to have same type of permissions, you can just group them, add them together. Next, it is a flexible grouping. So let us say there are three groups: developer, production, and test. And you want to have two users in developer, two users in production, but one user who is part of all the three groups. That is also possible. It is completely flexible when you come to groups. Next, it is policy inheritance. Policy inheritance means whenever you add people to a particular group, they will be inherited the policy of that group. Next, granular policies. We have been studying the granular policy concept since very long as of now. So once you dive deep, I show you how to do that. It will be understandable by you. Next, it simplifies the user's onboarding and offboarding. You can, with just one click, you can add the user to the group. With just click, you can remove the user from the group. It is completely up to you how you manage it. Next, policy versioning and history. You can keep track of what policies were assigned to a group or what policies were assigned to a user, then accordingly manage them. We'll see that how we do it because it is a more kind of a practical concept. Now let us understand what are roles in IAM. So roles are ways to grant the permissions to entities that are not IAM users. So let us say what it generally role mean. Role mean, for example, if I am somebody who wants to do the task, but somebody else will take my part and do the job. So I'll give you an analogy. So let us say there we let us say we have a family and one elder brother and three younger brothers, and the parents go out. So what will the parents do? They'll assign the parents' role to the elder brother so that he can take care of all the children there in the house. So that is how roles play in AWS as well. If you don't want to access the particular resource yourself, you can just do it with the roles provided to you. It is very easy, and it most of the times it comes with EC2 and Lambda. I'll show you how all that stuff is done. So let us understand what are the key points. First is the resource access. Uh, Let us say if somebody wants to link EC2 and S3 and access the data, so roles play a very important part in that as well. What resource to access, from which type of resource, we can do that easily. Next, you don't have any permanent credentials as somebody is playing role on your behalf to complete the task. So yes, no permanent credentials. Next, assume role. As I told you that a particular resource will be assuming an IAM user and then doing the tasks on your behalf. This is how roles work in IAM. Next, we have cross account access. So let us say if we have role in account 1 on AWS, then it can easily manage the resources of account 2 as well, which is registered on AWS. That can be done using the organization's concept. We'll understand that later. Next, permissions boundary. What all tasks should be done by a particular resource acting as a role can easily be considered and managed by the AWS admin. Next, trust policy. How to like what is the trust factor of that particular resource acting as a role in the IAM, that can also easily be managed. Next, temporary security tokens. When it comes to the accessing two resources, one acting as a role and other as the resource that we need to access to, we can easily manage them through the temporarily available security tokens. So now let us understand what are the policies and the permissions in AWS, because that is a very important concept when it comes to IAM. That is like permissions and policies are what we are studying as of now, because this is what makes sure that a user gets correct type of resource and correct access to it. He can perform correct actions, right? So permissions are the actual rules that determine whether a user, group, or a role is allowed to perform specific actions with AWS resources. This is what we have been studying for now. Permissions are what rules that define user, group, or role to perform a particular task. Correct. This is a very important part here. Next, permissions are defined in terms of AWS actions. I have been saying it along as of now that whatever actions you perform on AWS resources, that is what are your permissions. So if you don't have permission to start the instance, you cannot do that. This is what the permissions define. Permissions, they can easily be attached to the users, groups, or roles. I'll just show you how you can do that. Next, we'll understand what are the policies. Okay, so policies are the documents written in the JSON format that specify the permissions in IAM. So how we do that, how we create the policies, how we assign the policies to a particular user or a group, I'll show you that. But policies are the documents and they can contain multiple permissions, right? So we have to understand that as well. Next, there are two types of policies. One is the managed policy, another is the inline policy. Inline policies assigned directly to the user, and managed policies are the policies which are given to us by AWS. We can alter them as well. We can create our own policy as well. So how to do that? What are the things? We'll do that now. So let us dive in and understand how we do that practically. Okay, so now I am logged in into our AWS dashboard. Now to go to the IAM, what you need to do is go to the search bar and type IAM. But before going to the search bar, I'll show you that I am in the North Virginia region. As of now, when you click here, you will see a lot of regions present. As of now, I am in the North Virginia region. So I'll just search IAM and click here. Once I go to the IAM, you will see that this automatically changes to global, which means that IAM does not depend on any region. It is account specific and it acts irrespective of any region you are in. Okay, so here we are in the IAM dashboard. Now you will see that there are few recommendations, security recommendations you can see. One is that MFA for root user is not added. So once you sign up and log in for the first time, you need to set up MFA or multi-factor authentication for root user manually, right? So this needs to be done. I have not done yet, so that I can show you how we do it. So at first we will be adding multi-factor authentication for the root user, and then we will be moving to the other parts. Click on add MFA, and it asks me how you want to do it. So I'll just quickly name it Naman's iPhone and authenticator app, yes, because I'll be using Google Authenticator. So as of now, we need to just select okay. So I'll just quickly scan the QR code. These are the steps that you need to perform when you are adding your own authenticator. So once I scan it, it is asking me two MFA codes that appear simultaneously. So one I have entered, and now I'll be entering the second one. Okay, so once I hit add MFA, now the multi-factor authentication has been enabled on the root user. So how do we confirm it? I'll just quickly log out here, go back to the console. I'll quickly enter my email address. Okay, so now you see that it is asking me the code generated in my authenticator app, which basically is multi-factor authentication enabled. So I'll quickly enter it 856081, and here it is. So now multi-factor authentication for the root user has been enabled. This is only possible with the IAM dashboard. So we go back again to the IAM dashboard here. And now we will be checking other things that are available. So on this dashboard, you see that we have user groups, which are 0, users 0, because we don't have any as of now. Go to rules. These two rules are created by default, so I have not done any by myself. 0 policy, 0 identity providers, so nothing, we are fresh here. And on the right side, you'll see that we have an account ID and we have an account alias. Okay, so what I'll do is, as of now, I'll just create an account alias. So account alias helps you to log in faster, because it will be very difficult to remember this particular long account ID that is given to us. So what I'll do is I'll just create a new alias here. Okay, so now we have done. So alias is also created here. Now we'll step by step dive in, understand what are users, groups, and then assign policies to them. So as of now, you see that on the left side, you'll see user groups. We don't have any. So now what I'll do is I'll create a group first, because yes, we can create group in the process of creating users as well. But as of now, in starting, I'll be creating the groups. So I'll create a group here. I'll just name it as developers, and we don't have any users, so I'm not using it. And you can see that it is optional as well. And it is asking me any permissions you want to add. So I'll be adding administrator access as of now. Administrator access contains the allow action to everybody. So when you click on plus icon, you see that effect is allow, action is all. So you can let us say, if we take an example of any resource, let us say EC2, you can get the instances, you can update the instances, you can terminate it, you can do whatever you want when you have this administrator access. And resources all means you can do it everywhere. Asterisk means all. This is same when you use SQL as well. So I'll just select it and go scroll down, create a group. Okay, so now the group has been created. Now we see that we don't have any users in it, and that is why we have this danger mark here. So we'll go to the users and create a user now. I'll just enter Naman. Now we have the option to provide the access to AWS Management Console. So let us say this user just want the access to API calls to make to the AWS infrastructure that you have. So you don't have to provide the AWS Management Console. But in my case, I have to because I'll be interacting with the AWS console. And we have two options again here: specify user identity center, which we have not studied yet, so we are not going to touch it. And the other option is I want to create an IAM user, which we have studied, so I'll be just creating an IAM user as of now. Now two options again: auto generated password or the custom password. I'll be creating a custom password because I don't have to I don't need an auto generated password, so I'll just create an auto password for me. And then it is asking me that user must create a new password on the next sign in. No, I don't want that. I want the user to use the password that they have, that I have given to them. I don't want them to change it because it is for me, right? So I'll click next. And now you see that add user to a group. I have the option to add the user to a group. I'll click on developers, click next. I'll also show you how we can do it while just creating the user. Click next. And here we are. You can create a tag as well. Key value pair is given everywhere in the AWS infrastructure. So as of now, I don't need it. And click on create user. Once the user has been created, you will have the console sign in URL, username, and the password. You can download the CSV file as well, but it will only be given for once. You cannot do that again. And since I don't need it, I know my password. I'll just click on return to users list. And you see that you haven't viewed or downloaded the user's permission, I mean password. But no, I don't want it because I already know what the password is. So I click on continue. Okay, so now we are back to the dashboard here. You can see that we have the user created as well. Now, I'll be showing you how we can log in into this particular user. So, in this dashboard, we cannot do it because I'm already logged in as a root user. So I'll do is I'll quickly log out because we don't have much tasks to do as the IAM user as of now. We have much tasks to do as a root user because we will be assigning everything. So I'll click on sign into the console. Now it is asking me two things. Either you are a root user or you are an IAM user. So what I'll do is I'll click on IAM user. It is asking me account ID, which was a 12-digit number and I don't know that. And the account alias, which we just set up. So what I'll do is I'll just type my account alias. Next, it recognized it. Now it is asking me my name. Now click next. Now you can see that I am logged in and as an IAM user. Now how to verify that? When you go to the top right, you'll see that account ID is mentioned and the IAM user is mentioned as well. So this means that the user through which I am logging in is an IAM user, right? Which easily is able to mention, and we can switch role as well. As of now, we are not into it. So yeah, this means that we are as an IAM user here. Now, if I go to the IAM section here, since I have access to everything, I should be seeing the details here. So yeah, we have it here now. And again, we can add multi-factor authentication for yourself as well. So I don't want it to do as of now because I already showed you how to do that for root user. So I'm not doing it now because I'll be deleting this user afterwards. So I don't need it. Otherwise, what you can do is just click on add MFA and then again same steps as we did for the root user, because multi-factor authentication should be enabled for every user there in the infrastructure. In case your account gets compromised, somebody has the access to your username and password, still you can log in because you have multi-factor authentication enabled. Got it? So now what I'll do is I'll go to the billing part and see what are the charges, what account has been assigned to me. So you can see that you don't have any permission access to the billing account. But when we assign the administrator access, uh, I should get access to everything, right? So how am I not getting this, right? So there is a simple reason for it. Billing is not a resource. Billing is just a part of AWS account that you get. So you need to explicitly get the access to the IAM user through the root account. So how to do that? So now I have shown you how to log in and all. I'll just quickly sign out and log in again. But now this time I'll be logging in through my root account. I'll just sign in using root user email. Okay, so now I am logged in here. What I need to do is I need to go here, click on account, scroll down a bit. Okay, so you see that IAM user role access to billing information. So you need to explicitly give it to that particular IAM user so that they can have access to billing as well, or maybe all IAM users. So click on edit, activate IAM access. So now when you give now when you assign permission or policy through IAM or as an administrator access or give them billing access, they will have it, but you need to explicitly assign it from the account section we have here. So now we just quickly go back to the IAM and understand how policies and permissions work and other stuff as well. So now you see that user group was created, user is also created. Now what you can do is you can also create a group while creating the user. So you go to the user section, click on create user and enter the username. Let us say Naman2 and provide access to management console. I don't want it because this is a testing group. So now we can what you can do is add user to a group and we have developers group created. But if you don't want add to developers group, you can explicitly create a group here as well. Click on create a group and you can specify the group name. Let us say easy to access. Okay. And you see that we have a lot of permissions policies as granular as possible. We have like Amazon gives us to that. But since if you just want to manually create it, I'll show you that as well. So just click on search. I would say EC2 full access. We have it here. I'll click again, create user group. So now you can see that we can create a group as well. Now is select now create user. We are done. Now in this case, we have not assigned him to the AWS management console and it did not ask us the password setting option. How will this user be logging in into the uh, let us say API or other things that he is doing? What he'll be doing it through the security credentials. You can go here, security credentials, and you have a lot of things. Okay, so here are access keys. You can create an access key, and through this access key, he will be able to log in or do whatever the task is assigned to the user. You can see that console password is not enabled by like because we did not do that. So yes, this is possible as well. Now we go back to the IAM again. Now it is a time we understand how the policies are implemented. Please remember, I am not teaching you roles because when you go to the roles, you should understand any two services, let us say S3 and EC2, because until unless you have a practical implementation of what EC2 and S3 is, it is a bit difficult to understand. So I'm not teaching you the how to create roles because you will not be able to implement other if you don't have knowledge about the EC2 or S3 or any other service. So I'll be teaching you in the coming 2-3 videos how to do that. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be going to policies. We have a lot of policies here. We have 1130 policies and I'll create a policy. Okay. So now we have two options, visual or JSON. Okay. So I'll teach you both options. So I'll choose a visual. Okay. So let us say I'll choose EC2. What actions do I want to allow? Allow or deny whatever the effect is. As of now I'm allowing. By default, others will be denied. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll click on list all actions and then read all actions. I don't want any other action to be given to this and nothing else. Okay. Now resources. What all resources you want to allow to that particular policy? I want all resources to have this access. Okay. I'll click on next. Okay, what is saying? The old wildcard may be overly permissive for the actions, allow specific ARN so that the service can improve security. But still, I want to have it. Okay, so we don't have error here. We have this error here. Use the JSON editor for more information about the character count. Okay, so since we have a lot of actions allowed here, I'll just get one action. Let us say security. Describe security group reference, describe security rules, groups. Okay, so these are the only thing that I'm doing here. I click on next. Now it is asking me what policy name I want to give. So I'll give EC2 custom access tutorial. Okay, description is optional. If you want to add any tag, you can do it. Otherwise, oh God. So now the policy gets created, and you can just have a look over here as well that we have a custom policy created, but nobody is using it because we have not assigned it to anybody as of now. So what we can do is we can create a policy again, but this time not with the visual editor because I am not accustomed to the policy editor here. I'll be doing the JSON editor. Okay, so I'll show you how you can do it. Version is the first line of the policy, and this is the same. You have to keep it every time. 2012, 10, 17. If we have any new version coming up and this version gets changed, you need to use that. But as of now, this is the version we are using. This statement means what action you want to give it to, or let us say either allow or deny or all, to what type of resource. So you can add multiple statements in a single policy as well, right? So this statement states that SID basically is the state, you can say identifier. You can give whatever name you like. I will say EC2 custom policy, and this can be done. Effect, what effect do you want to give it to? Allow, deny. As of now allow is given, so I'll just deny it, and you see that we have any. Okay, so I give space, which is bad. We don't have to give spaces here. Action, what action you want to do here? So what you can do is, on the right side you have a table which helps you create the actions. So what I'll do is I'll search S3 here. S3, I'll select, and list access points, list access point for object lambda, list bucket, list jobs. I would say get accelerate configuration, get access point for object lambda. You can do that. What action as in specifies the what tasks a user can perform. So let us say user can list access points, user can list access point for objects lambda. These are the tasks that a user can do. Okay, so now we have added them. We need to add a resource. Which resource you want it to work on? So what I'll do is I'll have all resource as of now because I have not yet explicitly created any for this particular video. So I'll click add a resource, and you see this policy has been created. Now what we can do is we see this. This is the statement, one statement that we have done. Now if you want to add multiple statements, you can go back here, scroll down, and you have add a new statement, and you can have multiple policies, multiple permissions working on in the single policy editor. Okay, so as of now I don't need much. I'll just go back here, scroll down, click next. Policy name, I would say EC2 custom, not EC2, S3 custom policy. Description, I leave it blank, and yeah, allow is 0 out of 384 services, and I have denied one service which is S3. And what are the denied part? We did that earlier. Now click on create policy, and I search S3. You see that we have an S3 custom policy here. This is what we just did now, right? So don't be overwhelmed if you don't know what I am doing as of now, because the point is when you start working on the other resources available like Lambda, S3, EC2, CloudFront, auto scaling groups, now you will understand how an organization works. On in an organization level, everybody don't have access to the resources, right? So let us say if I am the cloud admin, I might have access to some particular things. Other people might have access to some particular things. So now as a cloud engineer, it is your job to make sure that the right people get the right permissions or the right actions to perform on the right resources, right? So when we dive deep into the EC2 or the I would say other resources, you will understand why like policy creation is much more important when it comes to organization level, right? So this is how the policy gets created. Now I will show you how we can create an inline policy, like how the permissions are directly sent to the user, because inline policy is also what we started, right? So I'll click on create user. I would say inline policy user. Provide access to the management console. I would say no. Click next. Now see, you have two options: add user to a group, which we did that. Copy permissions from any group. No, we don't want that. Attach policies directly. The point is, if you have multiple people of same type, what you do? You don't assign policy to each and everybody manually, right? You create a group, assign a policy to a group, and everybody in that groups get access to that policy, correct? So this is how the user group things work. But when you have only one person and you want to allow let us say permission to that person only, you can go in the case like attach the policies directly, but it is not recommended when it comes to organization level. I would say I will just give him the EC2 access. Cloud I would say this CloudWatch actions easy to access. I don't want much things to go here. Click on next. Again the same thing, create user, the user gets created. This is how this thing works, correct? So now we have understood what are user groups, how the groups are created, how the users are created. We have not yet studied how the roles are created, which is left for the other videos. We have studied how the policies are created through the visual editor and the uh, I would say JSON editor. And next we have identity providers, which is not to study as of now. Then the next thing what I'm going to show you is access advisor. Okay, so let us say I created a user named as Naman. I go to the user. You will see that the enabled like console access enabled, but two-factor authentication is not yet enabled on this particular account, right? Which is something we should take care of as a user. Now what I'll do is I am in the user. I'll just click on access advisor. This access advisor will help you what all resources this user accessed, and over the time you can just have a manage to that. Like I would say, if somebody has access to administrator and he just logs into the console and access only two things, uh, EC2 and S3 and CloudFront, these three things. What you can do, you can just confine the access to these three resources only, because you have to work on least privilege principle. You just don't distribute the permissions if they're not required, right? So as of now we see that not accessed in the tracking period, app to container, Alexa for business. I have not yet accessed these things, right? And there are endless things which I have not accessed. So what you can do is, as a cloud engineer, as a cloud admin, you can just go here, go to this particular user, modify the permissions, and that's it. This is why access advisor is given to you, right? Security credentials is important. You can add multi-factor authentication as well. So as a root user, you can add multi-factor authentication for that particular user as well, but it is not recommended. You just ask user to do that. This is because multi-factor authentication is very important, right? If you lose the access to your account, how are you going to get it back? You don't have any option, right? So the last option is the account settings that we are going to study. In the account settings, we have two options: security token service and the password policy. So as of now, we are going to start understand what is the password policy. We click on edit. So when a user is created, you saw that we had two options: auto-generated password and the custom password, right? So in the custom password as well, we had this particular criteria that the password should be uppercase, contain these characters: uppercase, lowercase, numbers, non-alphanumeric characters, right? And there is a length minimum of 8 characters, right? And if you click on auto-generated password, the same criteria will be followed. But if you want to change it, right? You let us say you want to have a password of 10 length. How would you do that? You just click on custom here. I would say 12 length, require at least one. I'll just select all these. Turn up. No, I don't. If you want to expire the password after certain days, yes, you can do it. Let me say that I expire after 30 days. Password expiration requires administrator reset. I'm not changing any of these things as of now. I click on save changes, set custom. Okay. So this account will be set to custom, right? I mean custom password policy that I have just created. So if I go to users, try to create a user, provide administrator access, and let us say password setting, and click on I want to create an IAM user. And now what I'll do is I'll clear a custom password. Okay, so you can see it must be at least 12 characters long, which I just did. It must be at least one characters upper letter and one lowercase letter, one number, and one alphanumeric digits, right? So these are the things that the password must contain. And if I don't want to do it, I'll just click auto generated password. I'll click on show password, click next, and let us say I'll add it into the developers, click next, and click create user. So once this user is created, you click on show. These are the 12 characters that the password has been created for. So this is how the password policy things work. And if you want to modify that, you can do that as well. So I go back to the IAM again because I don't want to access it. And I'll see if we have anything left for this particular video, because I cannot stuff everything in the IAM and then you feel overwhelmed because you don't understand how the things are going, right? So these are the things we studied: users, groups, roles, policies, how to add the policy, what are the permissions. Permissions are the uh, what I would say, the access what a user should get. And yes, so these are the things that we did. We have created two custom policies as well. Here is the custom policy. Now when we go to the entities attached, we don't have any as of now. Go to the permissions, click on here. So we have these permissions: get, accelerate, configuration, list buckets, list job. These are the only permissions with the user, and he will be able to perform only those particular tasks. So as we move forward in the course, and I'll show you how to create a bucket, and we'll understand how the user can list a bucket, how the user can create a bucket. So all these policies will be shown to you practically, because I don't want to stuff everything in a single video and uh, the things go above your head. So yeah, this is what, and this was it for this video. We studied basics of IAM, and if you have any questions to ask, you can just put down in the comments sections below. And if you liked it, you don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Master DevOps YouTube channel. And I'll see you in the next video.